Okay, so this is a really good moment to save our work and just save like a low poly. You could save a low poly copy of what we're doing. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to go save as X-Wing, and I'm just going to say low poly and just save this right now. There's, because we are about to start adding a lot more detail, more geometry. And so this is a great moment to do that. Now, just note that when I save as, it's going to set this up as my X-Wing low poly model, which what I really want to do is I want to just say open recent and say X-Wing, right? Because I want to continue working on this, but I want that low poly version that's just off on the side. So if all hell breaks loose in the next few minutes, I have something to go back to. So we need to start doing more manipulation. And what you need to do, this is one of those processes where you just have to start looking and being like, okay, what are the missing details? Where do I need additional geometry and how am I going to get it? And there's several different tools we can use. So first, there's the loop cut tool, which let's say we want to add this tip on the cockpit. So the loop cut would be perfect for this. So I'm going to do K and L for loop. I'm going to try to align somewhat close to that point there. I'm just going to click, hit escape, then hit the space bar, grab these points and lift all of those up until it is aligned. And then I might go to my top view as well. And you'll see that, right, this is the top of the thing. I might want these to be spread, these two to be spread out just a bit more because it's kind of straight. And it goes down. You'll see there's some edges here where there's some taper in as well. We're not going to worry about that quite yet. But something else to note is right here, there is the, this edge needs to be much more flush up top than it currently is. And so there's a couple different things we could do. But one of the tools that's going to be most useful for us in this instance is to select all of these points around here. So I can use the loop selection tool to do that. I could hit U on the keyboard and hit the letter L, or I could select this button here. And if I hover, you'll notice, right, depending on where I hover, it tells me what I'm going to be selecting. I want to select this and use the slide tool, but I hold down Control and click on here. Oh, wow, that did not work like I thought it was going to work at all. Okay, so I've got this selection. What I'd like to do is duplicate these points and just scoot them down the line a bit. We could also do this with a cut. I'm just trying to show you a different way, and I'm failing miserably. So if I go back to edges, hold down Control and click, I've got this selected. And then if I use the slide tool, and if I hold, I can't remember if it's Shift or Control. I think it's Control. Yes, if I hold down Control and click, what it's going to do is it's going to copy the edges that I got there. And so I want the geometry to slide along this bottom edge, right? I want that edge to be the same, but what I need to do is I need to drop the geometry at the top part. So I'm going to pull this out some, and then I am going to hit Escape. I am going to jump over to my points mode, and you'll see all these points are selected. I am going to hit the space bar so I get my selection tool. Notice it's changed to the loop selection, so I'm going to have to either use the quick key of the number 9 or click this button to get that tool back. And now what I can do is I can zoom in a little bit more. I'm going to open this up so you can see a bit better, right? And so I want this point to basically move and be level with this other point. And then honestly, in this case, I'm kind of, I could make a hard corner here, right? It's a little bit, annoying to have the edges not aligned like that, but we're going to go ahead and see if leaving things in this way is going to be okay for our model. So let's go ahead and take a look at what we've got up here. If I rotate my view, there is now a nice flatted section, right, for an astromech droid to sit right here. So let's go ahead and create a sphere and see if we can just get our astromech droid head in there real quick. So I'm making a sphere. It's absolutely enormous. I'm going to make it, let's just say 30 to start with. And now I'm going to go ahead and align this in some of my other views so it's a little bit more accurate. So I'm just going to drag this up. All right, that's still too big. So I'm going to say 15, see if that's a little small. So I will zoom in and say, let's do 20. 20 is about right. I'm going to say 19. 18. Okay. So I've got this set at 18. It should be aligned almost exactly where I want it to be. It looks like, you know, in this view, it sticks up higher for some reason than in this other view, but it is aligned really accurately there. And I should be pretty good to go. Now, something to note, if I zoom in here, let's just make sure there's no weird intersections there. And it looks like, you know, I could push that back I could pull this forward just a touch because it is pushing into the rest of that model. So maybe I just bring this forward just a hair, which is offset from one of these. Again, it's up to you, right? We can do a little bit of freeform positioning, and we're not going to model the rest of the droid. It's just going to be that sphere that's there. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I have my X-Wing selected again. And this is the process, right, you're going to continue to do for the rest of the thing. Now, you'll note at some point I managed to move points someplace they shouldn't be back here. Things are like really, I think, either more angled at the, I think they're less angled at the bottom than they need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and take a look and see if there's any one of these images that has the back of an X-Wing visible. It looks like there's one up there, but I'm going to see if there's a better one that's not like a Lego set. I could probably just search for back of X-Wing. But again, it's always good to have multiple views and things when you're working on this. It looks like that should be pretty flat. So I'm going to go ahead and go back and figure out where things got pushed off. It looks like these points here should actually be aligned right with this plane with all these other points. So let's go ahead and make sure everybody's somewhat closely aligned. There are tools that would allow me to more precisely do this, but for now that's going to be an acceptable set of tools. Okay. So while we're working with the back end of this model, I do want you to note on the back of these, and I don't know if I can, oh, that's a much higher resolution image, right? You can see it kind of tapers in, and this is a slightly different model X-Wing, but then there's some more stuff there. So let's go see if we can find a better X-Wing. X-Wing, here's a good one that might be a good rear view. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so you can see, right, things kind of taper in, like get inset a little bit here. And so I want to show you how to do insets and things like that while we have this open. So what we're going to do is we're going to come to the back surface. We're going to go to polygons mode. Fortunately, they are already selected if they are not. What we want to do is we want to turn visible only on, because if I don't and I go to select this, then right, I'm going to be selecting the edges. I don't want to do that. I just want to select the polygons on this surface. And there is a tool called Inset that will allow us to essentially create like a little inset shape here. So we're going to try that out. So inset, it's the letter I, surprisingly enough. And I don't need to be on the surface. I can just click and drag off in space. And obviously if I go this way, that's not what I want. But I want to pull this in just a little bit like so. Now that I've got this extra set of polygons here, right, with that edge, what I can do is I can use my extrude tool, so the letter D on the keyboard, and instead of extruding out, I can actually push back into the model. So now I've got a little bit of an inset here for if I was to go in and really detail this model and add all those additional details, they're there. And I can get a really nice result that way. Okay, so I've got that set, and that's how you use that inset tool. We're going to be using that a lot more as we go forward. And we just need to continue to tweak on this fuselage, right? We've started to get some details here, but if we look at the model, at some of our examples, you can see let's try and find a different version of this image, right? You can see that honestly, it's depending on the drawing. Like if we look at all the different models here, you know, most of them, right, it does sweep out, but then, oh boy, I don't need to save 10% off. Thank you though, model store. And so you can see, right, there is like an edge here where it kind of tapers in a little bit, but it more or less follows the shape of the body the rest of the way. So let's go ahead and see if we can get those tapers down on this back edge. Or should we do the nose first? I don't know if it really matters. This is already kind of tapered. What my hesitation is as soon as we add certain types of geometry, we're going to break the ability to loop cut any of this, right? So, you know, when we do this, what we're going to do is we're probably going to want to add, right, some edges maybe from down here up to there. But I am concerned that that will break some of our loop cutting abilities. So I just want to make sure we haven't done anything irreversible or super annoying at that point. And I think we're actually in a pretty good spot to go forward. We can always save this, right? We could always, you know, go back to it. Anytime you're at a point where you're like, ooh, if I make this choice and it's wrong, things are going to go sideways. It's a good idea to to think through that clearly, and then maybe save a copy so you have something to revert to if everything goes horribly wrong. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I know that, right, this should align with this. This point's far too low. I need to bring this up to be aligned with there. So remember, I'm going to go here. I'm going to select points mode. I want to select both sides. However, I do not want to just use the move tool to do this, right? Because it's going to lift the whole side up. What I want to do is I want to use the slide tool to at least to get close. I might need to nudge it backward or forward, but I'm going to use the slide tool to get us close to this point. So I'm going to come down here. I'm going to grab slide. I'm just going to pull this point up there. I'm going to check my other view, make sure nothing looks too out of sorts, and I think I'm actually going to slide this point as well until it's aligned with that edge there. I'm afraid if I move this point forward, it's going to make a big change, but let's go ahead and just see what happens if I bring this all the way up here. All right, so in this case, sliding probably introduced too much taper. If I go back here, you can see it shouldn't look like that. Granted, all of these models are slightly different. So I'm going to undo that step. And in this case, I might actually want to use my selection tool and maybe lift this up just a little bit so that I still have some of that thickness. As I work with this, I'm going to rotate my view and then just kind of manually taper it in just a little bit. Right? And so you can see that I don't have that additional geometry in there for this edge. but I am getting reasonably close to what that should look like. And again, this is probably sticking out just a little bit too far. I'm going to push it in just a touch. Okay. And then here I could slide this up, but again, I think that that's a pretty good transition. I'm not too upset with that. Okay. So now let's see what else we need to do. So we've started with our cockpit is looking a little bit more like the shape it's supposed to be. Let's go to the nose cone and try and fix that up a little bit. So this is another case where there's some really, there's a lot of transition and change in here. And we need to figure something out. Now, if you accidentally do this and your model is like the wrong way, all you need to do is go to View, Frame Default, and it will fix all of that for you. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom back in here and not use the wrong key this time. And so it looks like, right, we definitely need a cut here. And we definitely need a cut probably here. And these are steps, right? These expand outward. And so there's another possibility for what we could do with this. And this is, again, the point where we start to lose some of our freedom in terms of using the loop selection tool, which is fine. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do a cut that comes down here. We're going to try and add a little extra geometry in this gap to make this nose cone a little bit better. And so we're going to look at some other tools to get that done. So I'm going to say KK, which is my line cut tool. I'm going to start at this top edge and I'm going to cut, click there, come down here. And again, right, I'm just doing the bare minimum with this. And what it looks like is I might want one more piece of geometry through there, but we're just going to start with this. I'm going to hit escape. And now that I've got these set, let's go ahead and see what we can do in terms of getting these edges to play nicely. I'm going to zoom towards the nose cone. Okay, so now that I've made these cuts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of the points on that cut that I just made. And I'm going to go ahead and select those bottom points as well. And I am going to go to edges mode because what I want to do is I want to use the extrude tool to basically create like a sharp corner here. And so if I go to edges mode, I just need to hold down Control and click, and I get my edge selection transferred. If I've forgotten to do that, what's nice is it saves right, if I switch modes, it's going to save whatever this was. So I can always just switch back to points, hold down Control, and click to transfer again. Okay, so now what I'm going to use the extrude tool. I'm going to use D on the keyboard, or I'm going to click there. And what I want to do is I want to watch all of these different views, but I'm going to be in my top view and I'm going to click and drag a little bit. And you'll see it looks really weird in the top view, but you can see in my 3/4 view, I am getting this inset. You're also going to note that it isn't really connected to anything. It's actually going inside the model, which is honestly totally fine right now. So I'm going to pull this in maybe more than I need to, and I'm going to let go. So now I've got this geometry, but it's hidden inside my model, and these other polygons are still connected. So now I need to delete some polygons in order to be able to reconnect things and make this happen. So I'm going to go to Polygons mode, and I'm going to hit the space bar. I want to make sure visible only is selected. And I'm going to start by going to, say, this top polygon. I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to go ahead and delete all these other 2 polygons here. I'm just going to hold down Shift. So now I have this gap in my model. And I am going to go ahead, and the first step in making this adjustment, oh, and I should probably, I'm going to maybe need to delete a couple more polygons as well, but I'm going to start here and then we can go from there so you get some sense of what's happening. So I've got these two selected, and so I need to create new polygons now. So a tool we haven't talked about yet is the Polygon Pen tool. If I select the Polygon Pen tool, what this allows me to do is I can either hover over an edge, and I can click and drag, and that's a bad choice. I can click on a point and click on a point, then walk over here, click, and then come back over to this point and click again. And once I've done that, if I move a little bit more, this becomes a circle, and I can close that in. So you can see now I've got that edge going in there. So now I can do the same thing. Now, something else I can do is once I've got this hole started in a fill, if I hover over an edge and I hold down Control, what it'll do is it'll drag out this whole thing, and you can see that as I'm moving it, it's snapping it to these points. So if I do that, one thing you do want to note though is it will snap to any point anywhere nearby. And so in our case, it could potentially snap to the inside of the model. You just have to rotate your view after you've done it and make sure that you made no terrible mistakes. Okay, so now, right, I'm going to have to delete these larger polygons in order to close the rest of these holes. Now, instead of doing that, what I may want to do first is say, is there any other place where there's going to be some sort of, where there's just a good point for another cross section to happen? And in my case, I think that it'd be great to have a cross section here. Now, I'm going to attempt to use the loop cut tool, and so I'm going to hit K and L. And fortunately, it seems to be happy with my model in the state that it's currently in. So I'm just going to line up with this seam, and I'm going to go ahead and hit K. Or I'm not hit K, sorry. I'm going to click, and then I'm going to hit escape. This way I don't have this geometry, like I'm not deleting this huge polygon. I should have a little bit more, oops, undo that. I should have a little bit more freedom when I do this. Now, at this point, I don't know if it's as hard for you as it is for me, but sometimes the X-ray view gets a little bit obnoxious. So I'm going to select my cube. I'm going to turn X-ray off because now I can kind of see where the holes are a little bit better and where the solids are. And so I'm going to go ahead and go back to, I'm in polygons mode. I'm going to go ahead and use my live selection tool, which is now called the brush selection tool. I'm going to select this polygon. I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. And I know I need to delete this other one here. I don't know if that bottom edge should have additional geometry. I could probably look. But and you could add it maybe if you want to, but I'm going to go ahead and select that, delete that as well. And it looks like maybe I would want to do another part of the cone there, but I'm not going to, just for time. And so now I need to use my Polygon pen again. This time what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Polygon Pen. I'm going to start here, and because this is actually like a triangular shaped polygon, I'm going to just do this manually. I'm not going to try and do an edge connection. And look at that. I just do 2 points and it's like, oh, you want to put a triangle there? Fantastic. Now that I've done that, I have all the edges I need for this one where I can hold down Control, click and drag, and have it snap to the wrong place entirely. See if I can get it to do what I want it to do. It seems like, right, although I wish it would snap where I want it to, it's not going to do that. So I'm going to undo that. And I'm just going to use the Polygon Pen tool in its normal state. So I'm going to start here, click over here, make sure that I'm clicking to this inside point. And when I do that, that polygon should fill back in. And then this one, I should be able to hold down Control and snap this down there and not have any issues with it. Okay, so now we've gotten a much better looking nose cone. You can see that, yeah, I can already tell that I should have done a little bit more geometry down there. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that last hole. Now, one of the issues is this edge, right, is not connected to this bottom surface. And so I need to find a way to connect that. The first thing I need to do is, if I go to my polygon pen tool, right, I can create a point on this line. And I'm going to go ahead and select this and make sure it manipulates the edge like I think it will. Perfect. So I've selected that point, and I've got this point over here. What I need to do is I need to connect these 2 points together. So if I hold down Shift and I select both of these, there's this Weld tool. And so if I click on Weld, and you'll see I get this little white dot in the middle or on one of the ends. That basically says where's that joint supposed to go. In this case, I want to weld it to this outside existing edge, so I'm going to click here. And what that's going to do is that's going to bridge those points together. Now, if I hadn't done that ahead of time, when I went to, say, pull this edge up or do some more work, I would have some problems. And I'm going to need to do this on the other side of this model as well. So I'm going to zoom in. It's a little bit hard to see what's going on. And so I'm going to go ahead and use my selection tool, deselect this, come over here. If I lift this point up just a touch, you can see this edge is actually connected already. So I'm in a good shape there. I'm going to leave that alone. And that's actually because of the symmetry. I just totally forgot symmetry was on. So fantastic. So now what I need to do is I need to add one more point to this edge here. So I'm going to use my polygon pen tool. I'm going to come over here on this edge, and about the same width as this, I'm just going to click. Again, it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to hit escape. And then I want to make sure if I select this, that this is indeed, yep, connected. Fantastic. So now I can use my, I can go back to my polygon pen tool. I can hover here. I can hold down Control, and I might be able to bridge this, although it looks like they don't want to connect in the middle, but maybe they'll connect to the edge there. That is not the case. Oh, it did an all right job. It just created a point somewhere bizarre. So let's go ahead and we'll just use the polygon pen tool to connect all of this. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can just connect across here and make it think that it knows what it's doing. And I'm going to go ahead and do this. The only other part now is that this point is not connected. So I could hit escape. Oops. Not escape. Sorry, I did the wrong thing. If you hit escape, you just have to start all over again. And I don't think I can, if I do 4 points there, let's just see if it helps. If I connect that, perfect. Right, so that actually connected to that bottom point. I may want an additional point in here. So to do that, I can use my knife tool. So I can say KK, just click, come up to this edge. In this case, if it's not perfectly centered, it's not the end of the world. Oh, but maybe it is the end of the world. So, right, so you can see I did that, but then it mirrored it and I was off a little bit. So all I can do now is I just select these 2 points and I can use Weld again, which is the welding mask. And you'll see it's right in the center. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Okay. So I've got those points there. Go back to polygon mode. I'm going to hit space to get my selection tool. And I'm going to select these. It looks like there's some additional geometry there or something. But we're going to just, if I delete those 2, right, yeah, there's still 2 more polygons. For some reason, there were 2 layers of polys there, but it looks like it's happy now. So I'm going to go with it. I'm going to select these points. I do want you to note, right, there's one side of each polygon that's orange and one side that's purplish blue. The purplish blue means it's the inside surface of the polygon. Orange means it's outside. So when we've got these selected, right, they're orange, although you'll notice these are not. And if I select this, that is not. That's going to be problematic as we go forward, but we'll look at how to fix that once we get the rest of this fuselage snapped back together. Okay, so let's go ahead and get these polygons glued together. So I'm going to use the Polygon pen tool. I'm going to select this point, come over here, select this point, and then come all the way down here and select this point. Move a little bit so it turns into a circle and click. So I've got that one done. Oops, I did not mean to brighten my screen, but I did. And then now I can use my selection tool, get rid of this bottom polygon, turn my brightness down a touch because that's really intense. And now I can use my Polygon pen tool one more time, and I could either try the control. Let's just see if that works. No, it seems like it's snapping to something else. I'm going to undo that. And so I'm just going to use the Polygon pen tool in the normal state one more time. So I'm going to click here, click there, and click there. And then hover, close that in. Okay. All right, so now I've got, it's a little bit, it's like a little bit overdone, but the end of this is ready. And the last thing I want to show you is how to fix these purple polygons. So I'm going to go back to my live selection tool. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And the reason that this is a problem is that when you go to apply materials, textures, everything else, the orientation of the polygons makes a big difference, especially for certain materials. Like things will look really weird if it's the outside and then the inside, because it flips things around, and it does, the math it's doing is all based on like what is supposed to be the outside surface versus the inside surface. So for some materials, it won't matter at all. But for many, it will make a huge difference. You're gonna be like, why does that look so ugly? Why does that not look right? And oftentimes it'll be because some of these normals, is what they're called, are reversed. And the normal is just like the outward facing direction. So I've got those purple ones all selected. If I go up to the top of the screen and I go to Mesh in my menu, and I go down to normals, you'll see I can do align or reverse. Now, I only have the normals selected that I want to reverse, so I'm just going to click reverse normals. And I'm going to hit OK. And now those should all be orange. Now, something that you can do when you're in polygon mode to check your mesh is you can just hit Command or Control A to select all, and rotate around your model and just make sure everything's orange and that you don't see any purple sticking out. And then you know you are good to go. Okay, so with this additional detail, that was a lot of information. I think this is a great stopping point for this stage in the tutorial. And we will look at how to add oops, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know why it was rotating that way. But we'll look at how to add a touch more detail with a couple other tools here in a little bit, and then the remainder of the detail will be yours to attempt to resolve.